What does real-world success in business actually look like? Welcome to Bearcats Mean Business, the official podcast of the University of Cincinnati's Carl H. Linder College of Business, where inspiring career stories, honest lessons, and fresh business perspectives from the people building impact in the real world come together. Tune in for inspiration, practical business insights, and forward-looking thought leadership on how ambition turns into action. And now, for today's episode.
I'm here with Jude Schramm. Thank you, Jude, so much for joining us today. Here. It's fantastic. Jude, you're currently Chief Information Officer at Fifth Third Bank and one of our most valued strategic partners, both as at Fifth Third and you as a liaison, as well as on our Business Advisory Council, and a treasured Cincinnati community leader. I call that out because I think it's just really important for all of our listeners, particularly our students, to understand the role model you are coming from here as a student to CIO now. So I want to thank you for your inspiration ahead of time.
Great. Yeah, no, thanks. Appreciate that.
You know, I do think yours is a remarkable journey from, a UC student to CIO, but no one's career path is what you expect at the time. They're windy, they're surprising. When you look back, which is always a better viewpoint, looking backwards than forwards, were there some particular pivotal early experiences, and maybe even if you picked one that helped shape where you are now and how?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, thanks for letting me be here. I do appreciate getting a chance to come up and hang out on campus and spend time with you, so I do appreciate that. My career, to your point, everybody's career is different, and one of the things I will say is, way back when I was here, ages and ages ago, in the stone ages of really the technology timeframe, I didn't even know that I knew to hope to be in luckily, the position I'm in today. I mean, I never really had a vision to become a CIO or a vision to become a business leader, maybe even until I even got into the role of CIO. I always just wanted to gravitate to solving problems, learning continuously about my profession and how to be good at what I do, which eventually went from being good as a technologist to good as a leader. But there were a couple pivotal moments that I do cite sometimes when I'm talking to people about career. One in particular for me was, I was probably a mid-level manager at General Electric when I was there, and on my way to more senior leadership positions. And in a culture like that, a lot of times your success was looked at also not just your professional, like how you show up, but there was a lot to the org hierarchy. Who do you lead? How big's your organization? Where do you fit inside that hierarchy? And probably 2 roles before my CIO job is when the iPhone came out. Oh. And the gentleman who was leading the services division for the aviation business here had said, hey, I'm going to go spend $30 million just R&D to figure out what this thing can do, because I think these are going to be really big for business. And he told my boss at the time, I'd like to have somebody come lead this for me. And so we were talking about it at a staff meeting, and I raised my hand and said, I want to do it. And she said, no, you don't. This is a individual contributor. Go experiment, figure stuff out. It's not going to help you get to your next level. I don't think you want to do that. And I had to literally argue back and forth with her for almost a week. I said, I don't care about those things. I just want to be a part of this thing because I think it's important. And so I did. I took a job with no direct reports, a job where I had no real responsibility other than to figure this thing out for the company. And I had a lot of people that were my peers are like, why are you taking yourself off of the leadership track? And I'm like, I didn't have a good answer for them, but that thing led to my next 2 roles that were leading kind of digital for the business, and then for the larger GE corporation, trying to establish the digital business for General Electric, which ultimately was my role before I was CIO there at aerospace. And so the lesson from that for me was you can't get stuck in the hierarchy in a career path. You got to be willing to go and put yourself in different positions and in different places that may not look normal to everybody, but I followed something that meant a lot to me, which was the continuing education of my belief in where technology was going. And it worked out pretty well for me. So that was probably a big pivotal moment for me in my career, making that decision.
Oh, but I love that story, Jude, because, it was, you get these questions of why are you getting off the leadership track, and it actually propelled you. I mean, you jumped upward on that track, but you don't know that when you're making that call.
No, and I didn't make it for that reason. No. I had no real, even at that point, I had no real aspiration to be like a CIO, if you will. I just want to keep learning and growing and challenging things that allows me to have a skill to contribute to the company and to keep, I guess, justifying my right to just be at the company, period, forget the level or the title.
I think it leads to that's a pilot type project. I've now known you long enough to know that you've led multiple big digital transformations, right? Thinking about full scale systems and others. Right now, I know you think all the time about generative AI.
Every day.
But man, how do you even start, Jude? I mean, you're at a Fortune 500 company leading a digital transformation. Where do you begin on something like that?
It's a good question, especially with AI, because it is very different from, if you think about the generation of like the businesses on the internet and e-commerce, or you think about the move to cloud from traditional on-premises major enterprise systems. Those all required a whole different kind of, not just skill set, but an understanding of traditional IT enterprise stuff. And they had to roll out and deploy in ways that it felt more like a traditional IT thing. AI, to your point, is very different because it's one of the first times a majorly disruptive technology is coming into the business and the normal personal lifestyles of people with really no forward requirement for a bunch of advanced technology migration to a new thing. It just is there, right? And so, for me, that it is a bit of a different journey with AI than the others, because one of the things that I started doing 3 years ago was just spending a large amount of time understanding, like, at its foundation, how AI happens from a technology perspective. And we have a great leader at Fifth Third that we have who's been here for, he'd been here for a while, left, and then came back to do this with me. And it's spending hours and hours and hours with him and just doing research and experimentation on my own personal time with all these technologies to learn it, because I think you have to have some level of understanding of how it works before you can think about how would you then start to apply it into a company or into the business, which is now where we are, is like, how do we apply this and apply this at scale? But it took a lot of personal time up front. Like I told my team, I was spending probably almost the same amount of time learning and experimenting with AI as I was doing my day job for probably the better part of a year, or so before we started even put it into actual people's hands at the company.
I so appreciate the way you just explained that, because when I think of digital transformations, I think of the examples you gave prior, like moving to cloud or others. Yeah. You can almost picture a Gantt chart and a project management, like kind of this flow. Yep. It's this amorphous thing, AI, and it's here. And your level of experimentation, I don't know, it even brings me back to your example of the phone. Yeah. Right? The iPhone is, we don't even know what it could or should do yet.
No, and it's changing so fast. What we think it can do today, it's the first technology that there's been a cycle for me personally where like it's going so fast. The things that we want to do with it, by the time we actually get to the point of being able to do something, the underlying capabilities have dramatically changed. And we find ourselves continuously pivoting our strategy. Whereas like the overarching strategy hasn't changed, but the how is different. 6 months ago from today is completely different with how we're looking to apply it.
Much more ready, fire, aim.
Yeah.
Right? And then 100%. Adapt as you go.
Yeah.
Well, which makes me think about security, because it's such an issue and everybody's talking about it.
Yep.
I want to take it into a particular area because I know you well. I've so valued you as an advisor, and you're a man of principle. I'd love to know how your own values and principles play into the way you think about cybersecurity, because especially as you're moving so fast.
Yeah, that's a great question. You've got to
have a high level.
It is. And the way that I think about it is when we look at either the existing ways we're trying to protect customers, right, or protect our employees, AI or not, right, we really try to put that at the forefront of every decision we make when we're putting technology out into our environments for people to use. Right. And so AI is no different. And for me, it's got to start with that foundational principle of like, I can get a lot of stuff out there, but if I do it ahead of knowing how we're going to protect the people that are going to use it, then it's creating an unnecessary risk that people don't even know they're being exposed to. And so we do spend a lot of time, like when we are putting AI in, we're probably by all measures, with most other banks, we're doing pretty good. We're probably deploying AI at the pace of the trillionaire banks and that kind of stuff. But what a lot of people don't probably know is that we're one of the few banks that the first year, while I was experimenting personally, me and our head of AI and some other people, what we were also building was our governance framework for how do you deploy
simultaneously
AI. Yeah, so we had a policy written before we ever put one thing in the environment. We had a framework for how we are trying to assess and evaluate AI. In fact, we have 2 patents that were awarded to us at the end of last year around generative AI, and both of them are really patents around the way we're protecting the AI from getting either jailbroken or compromised. And so we are constantly thinking about how do we protect the customers, how do we protect the employees, so that when we do put it out there, we already have a good sense of what that means. And even today, our cybersecurity teams are doing a ton of experimentation with how do we detect AI in the environment, especially bad AI that we don't know or don't want in there. And so we're doing a ton of investment in that relative to the overall IT spend on AI. It's a big piece of it.
It has to be.
Yeah.
I won't say the company, but I had another strategic partner here recently saying that they were hit about 7,000 times a day.
Yeah.
Does that sound like a crazy number to you?
Oh no, we get hit tens of thousands of times a day with attempts to break in easily.
Yeah. I don't think people quite realize when you say cybersecurity is at that level of risk,
nonstop.
It's huge.
It's nonstop.
And the fact that you were ahead of it and thinking so early is, I think, just something for us all to think about further. You know, you've now, this is your second time as a CIO,
yes.
Right? You were at GE, then this was pre-GE Aerospace, but it was in the aerospace.
It was
division.
aviation at the time. It was part of the bigger GE company prior to them breaking it out.
Is the role changing for you?
Yeah.
I mean, not just in the institutions being different, the organizations, but just
for sure. I think, you know, if you go way back to when I wasn't the CIO and I remember interacting with the first CIO, like at that kind of a senior level, there was definitely much more of a sense of your job is to run the IT department, right?
Okay.
And what I mean by that is I don't know that the CIO 20 years ago was sitting around the business leadership table. They reported into the CFO or to somebody else.
Run the infrastructure.
And they're responsible for running the infrastructure, making sure that, you know, I always jokingly say the ones and zeros and the spinny disks were always up and running and moving and working. You know, one of the great things about working at Aerospace when I was there, when in the old form of the company, was it was about an era where the CIO was becoming a business leader as well. And you were expected not just to know the technology, but know how it was really delivering value to the company, whether it be in the efficiency side of simplifying and automating internal processes to delivering and enabling revenue generation, which is, you know, I think there was a lot of articles over the last number of years about the CIO as a business leader and data, which is all great. I think today, even just, you know, if you think about the journey we're talking about with AI, I think that the CIO is those things and also a throwback to some of the understanding of like, I'm expected to help the entire company understand how to make the best use of AI to make their jobs more effective, more efficient, whether, again, it's to add more scale, to take more streamlining, or to help contribute to revenue. And it's a perfect blend of the two because, you know, if you, again, I don't know, I assume that you guys have rolled out like something like Copilot here at UC. Everybody can use it. Nobody really knows how it works. Right? They know how to use it, and they don't need to know how it works necessarily, but somebody does. And I think there's a big expectation, at least at Fifth Third, that I'm able to both be a understanding of the business side of our company and the technology side in a way that those two things are almost inexplicably tied to value, whether that value is on revenue or on expense. And so it's a big evolution to the point that, you know, because we'll probably talk about this a lot about like, what is the future of AI, looking for jobs and da-da-da-da-da. Like, it makes me almost an HR person at that point too, because I get asked that question, what is going to happen to jobs if AI comes in? And like, you can't really ask HR. They don't know. Like, they don't know how the technology can or should disrupt the company, but it's my job to know that and figure that out and feed that back into the rest of the company to make it part of our strategy. So you start to take on different roles as a CIO now because of the way that the technology is changing the landscape.
I appreciate the way you just described that, Jude, because, I mean, I can think back in history of these periods where, say, manufacturing went from making the widgets to being strategic, or
Yep.
HR went from just run the policies to being strategic. And I can absolutely see that with the information side, but it's also not just strategic to the CEO or the board. You're saying, I mean, it's the team and helping all the team be a multiplier effect.
That's right. That's right. I mean, you got to enable them all, but to enable them all, you have to have a perspective and some level of understanding of what they're trying to do as a leader and their function, right? And that's important.
It's changing fast, though, and you're at the table. You're key to the vision around the technology side, particularly in this case for AI. How do you stay abreast with something changing that fast? You personally, but also for the vision. So I feel like there's a learning element, but there's an organizational element too.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think there's a whole lot kind of in there we could probably even unpack, but some of it is back to good old human relationships. Like in our environment, I sit on the same floor as all my peers. The head of legal, the head of HR, the head of risk, the head of the lines of business and that kind of stuff. And so we spend a lot of time together. And so I get a chance to understand their view on the rest of the company and what they're trying to drive. I know their priorities. We plan together. We do strategy together. We spend time together. And so I get to be a part of the inner circle that's creating the environment for Fifth Third. And so what I then get to do is help them think through how my role and my function can help their goals. And to your point, that very quickly is turning into AI as a way to help them do things. And so a lot of times it's thinking through, what are you trying to do? And is there a way to do it differently than the way you're doing it? And can AI help? That's usually the way the conversation starts. And part of my job is to know enough to help, because what I don't want to do is pretend like yes. Because one of the things I see a lot, and you probably do too, is AI is going to take every problem and solve it. Like, not true, as you know. But if you're not day to day in it like I'm supposed to be, and you're in one of these other leadership roles, you probably aren't sure when AI could or should help, and if it can, and at what pacing or timing. Yeah. And that's part of my job, is to help make that clear to my partners in the business. Like, AI can work great here and now because it's ready, as we talked earlier, from a hardening and scaling. I can protect it. I can do whatever. This is a great place where we could try it in your given area, or put it in your area. And after people go, it's not ready in yours because the risk is not there, or the technology isn't mature enough, and that kind of stuff. And that's part of my value contribution, right, is making sure that we have those dialogues before they get too excited, because invariably a lot of people come to them and say, I was at this conference and I saw this AI thing and it's going to save our lives. And it's like, probably not. Right. And so it's helping to myth bust a lot of the energy that comes upward to them from their teams. But I think I've built the rapport with all my peers that, like, they know, hey, let me go talk to Jude before we get too excited about this thing. Yeah. And a lot of the company does that with my organization too. It's like, hey, we see this thing. Can it help? It's like, let's bring it back to the governance process, and let's have a real conversation about what you're trying to do.
Oh, that's so helpful. Well, and it makes me think as well about some of the partnering that we've been doing with the Center for Business Analytics, which we've actually just rebranded as the Center for Business Analytics and AI, because we have been doing so much work.
That's great.
Particularly with strategic partners like Fifth Third. One of the things that I've learned with you, through you, in this partnership, is the power of use cases.
Yes. Because
if not, AI is this amorphous thing
that,
you're right, people think is a cure-all, and we need examples. And I think, I'd love to hear you share a little bit about how the partnership with the center has been helpful for you, because I certainly know one of the ways it's been very helpful for us is to see it in practice.
Yep.
And then to be part of the journey at Fifth Third, both from projects but also in training.
Yep.
And I think it's a virtuous cycle.
It is. And as you know, this is something that we spend some intentional time on. So, for me, one of the great things about the partnership between us and the Center for Business Analytics and AI, I got that right?
You did.
Is, and I remember this I think it was this last fall, we did a project together where teams were coming down to Fifth Third Center to work with our data engineering and analytics teams on a business problem. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that does a lot of things for both of us, by the way. So one is the forward look to that, to me, is always the experience that the students get to see how business works. The reverse benefit is we get a chance to interact with university students in a real world environment. And that is always a good feeder for things like co-op programs and internships and post-grad, career opportunities, because we get to all create an ecosystem where we're collaborating over a problem, and people get to almost experience each other and say, like, is this a good fit both ways for people? Like, hey, we really like this student, man, we should talk to him about post-career. Does he have plans, or kind of things where the students can go like, wow, I really either had a good experience or didn't. And maybe this is for me, maybe it isn't. But I think the point is, we're bringing real world business problems to the university with an opportunity to say practical application. Can we work together to solve it? The university gets to say, these are real world business problems that are happening that we can be preparing our students for. And it's just a win-win. And you and I are going to talk, I think, we have a business analytics meeting next week, advisory
board,
where I wanted to talk to you about like putting that on steroids in the coming year, where we can get a cycle that's maybe happening up on campus as opposed to students coming down both ways. Like, can we create a scalable version of that that's got maybe a half dozen problems we're trying to solve coming together at the university to put a real ecosystem around this? Because I think it's important that as we work together, we keep kind of scaling that up, because the other thing it brings for us is it also gives some of my teams a chance to go work in an environment where it feels more innovative. Like, not that banking's not exciting, don't get me wrong, it's exciting, but sometimes when you're solving problems and you're solving it in the context of your teams, you don't get that sense of excitement and innovation. And I can't tell you how many times people working on the projects with the students, when I'm talking to them, they're like, God, it's like work. It's like being back in school again, or it's like having this chance to kind of think outside the box because we're working with these students, and it's a different dynamic for my teams that feels refreshing.
Right.
And so it's a cultural boost to them as well. And so there's just all these benefits of this that companies get, and the university, I think, gets as well, that starts to form the community between the university and the businesses that we all get and strive for and work hard at anyways, right? And so what better way to do it than real life problem solving, right?
Agreed. And whether it's at 1819 or here in Lindner, I mean, I do. I think there's the power of connection, but also space, and how do we make the most of those? Oh, I love that idea, Jude. That's good. I mean, it's not going to surprise you. I think every day also about AI, and I'm thinking about it from the education side. I know we're going to talk about this at the advisory board, but it's vital. We need to align the education side to the business demands.
Yes.
I would love to hear you share a little bit about what you think we should be doing to make sure that alignment is happening. Yeah,
that's a great question. And because I do have a senior high school coming here next year, I think about this a lot personally, and then also professionally. Like,
what would you want to see happening for him?
I think there's a couple things. One is, I really hope that this myth that gets created sometimes, we don't need higher education anymore because people can self-serve in companies, just gets blown away somehow, because I think it's completely wrong. For a number of reasons. It isn't just the education, which I think is fantastic. So context, when Isaac, my son, and I were talking about degrees, he was even like, what do I do? What's AI going to do? What do I even go into? And I said, when I think about it, a finance degree is irreplaceable because it truly teaches you business. And I don't think I appreciated that till I got to Fifth Third, because being in a bank, which is all about money and numbers and finances, you really have to understand the way that we make business decisions to help that drive anything else that you do. And so he's got to accept it into the finance, and he's going to double that with business analytics.
It's a great combination.
Right. And so I think those combinations are great for you, as you said, because you kind of get the best of both worlds of what I think the future is going to hold. When you go beyond that, when you ask about the education, I think beyond just the normal way that UC does a great job preparing kids from a true classroom experience and from a co-op and work experience, I think there's an element that I see in some of the early career folks that really will benefit in the future from things like really understanding, and I think I even talked about this, about structured problem thinking. About one of the things that I got when I was here was really learning how to solve problems. Because I think there's things AI is not going to be able to do. It's not going to handle relationships.
Was it an economics class or something you told me
about? It was actually a summer macroeconomic class that I had. It was like 7:30 in the morning on
you
Saturdays in the summer.
Jude. That's so
You
great.
never forget it, right? And so, that idea of really understanding how to problem solve in a logical, structured way, because the one thing I do worry about AI is like, I don't want it to start to get the belief that people don't need to learn how to think and problem solve. Like, it's going to be great for a lot of things. And maybe someday it'll replace us all. And I'm just a hopeful guy, but I hope not. And I don't believe it will. I think humans are way more resilient than that. And I think we won't let it happen. But I think being able to come out and know how to problem solve and do structured thinking, to know how to interact with people. Like, I could go on my soapbox about where the social media economy has created so much isolation that I see it show up because we are a in-person culture. We don't do a lot of remote work. We have people in the office because I believe any company, its cultural, its definition of culture and how it actually creates path for people to have career pathing needs people to interact. And I think, whether it's the co-op program or just the way that we evolve, the way that we, have kids doing a lot of interaction to do not just isolated problem solving, but problem solving in groups really is a big benefit because you come out of college and 9 times out of 10, you're not solving problems by yourself. You're doing it in different settings with different people and trying to solve different problems that you're not an expert in, but it's the collective that matters. And I think that's what education is going to continue to evolve to, is how do we create more opportunities in the education system, in the university environment, to mirror what that looks like out in the business world, or should look like in the business world for a long time. And how has AI become a part of solving those problems and part of those groups, right?
No, very, very much so. I appreciate hearing that, and we're going to have a great conversation in a couple of weeks at that board meeting. So you said, one of the concerns is, people are going to be gone out of all of these processes.
Yeah.
I'll give you a different one that I hear too often, and I know keeps people up at night, is that it's going to eliminate entry-level positions.
Yep.
But boy, those are incredibly important positions for the latter.
Totally
So
agree.
I wonder how you think about that at Fifth Third. Maybe it's going to change, or we think about other ways to develop people for whatever is the appropriate role.
Yep. I don't think that's going to happen at scale. And so I think there's a nuance to this question that probably merits a little bit of like talking about. Here's the way I want to think about it. I think we are in the hype cycle phase of AI, right? And
The dot-com bubble.
I can remember in the dot-com bubble. I can remember in whatever phase you want to get at. This technology is going to take over, and we're not going to need people anymore. And what happens? Some jobs get displaced, but there's always typically newer and more of newer jobs that get created. And so I think, maybe back to our previous question, the university will definitely be staying on top of how are jobs evolving and changing, what new careers are being created with AI, what careers are being disrupted. I don't think it's just about entry level, it's all the way through the companies. But I think in today's world, like in 2026, like really now in February, March of 26, we're just in the hype where everybody's saying that it's all gone, we're all going to go. Like, you and I have been through this, right? There will be stability. There will be stabilization. Like I kind of said earlier, humans are really good at not creating self-extinction, right? Last I checked. And so, there is a lot of recognition that I know in conversations I'm at, not just in Fifth Third, but at other places where I'm talking about AI a lot, of the recognition of like, I can't eliminate all these people. Like at the end of the day, I'll give you a really good example. My head of engineering and I were talking because he's like, hey, a year from now, and he meant this in a like, let's talk about this way. The way this is going, I could probably run all of engineering, and I have 1,000 engineers. I could probably run all of engineering with 5 people, right? And I go, maybe. And we both, like, this is him and I come to the same conclusion, which is, and when those 5 people retire, who's going to replace them? And we were both looking, we're like, well, I guess we can't do that, right? We don't want to do that either, but we can't. And so then it's like, okay, so how do we come back, everybody get back to normal? What is the right way to think about defining the organization so that we have people coming in at early career that have career pathing up to those roles? And there's enough of them that you can have the traditional hierarchy of people having careers at every level that are meaningful, and they continue to drive a career path upward. And so we are in a phase of trying to understand, like, what does the future look like? Because and I mean this in a serious way, there's ways you talk about there's going to be agents that are going to be part of an org hierarchy at some point, right? Non-human engineers that are sitting in an org chart. Maybe not for real, but kind of when you think about it. Right. But part of what I'm getting at is we're really trying to think about, will there be disruption? Yes. Do I know where that will be? I don't. I also know there will be new opportunities for new job creation and new types of jobs. And it's kind of my job as the CIO, back to something, to help figure out what that's going to look like, right? Because I don't want to sit here and say, yeah, there won't be this or there won't be, I don't know. But I will tell you that sitting here today, every company I talk to of any real size will tell you, we don't want AI to eliminate people. We want AI to allow us to help people do more. It's about scale, as opposed a scale of what we can do versus doing more with non-humans. That's not anybody's current mega plan, if you will.
I'm glad you're hearing that too. The other one I so appreciated it in a different meeting. Someone said your ultimate job needs to be teaching students how to learn faster.
Yes.
And that was a really good takeaway for me, because I do think that's the power of co-op. It is about the learning process, but also being really intentional about it. And we have the power or value of experience and wisdom, whatever age, whatever you want to call it, that we've seen cycles come and go. It doesn't mean we're going to be complacent. It just means we have some confidence that we'll learn how to adapt.
That's right.
I think these younger students, we need to help them.
I agree 100%. It's going to be, that part of it will be different, right? Because this, to your point, the speed with which it's changing is greater, faster, whatever word you want to use, than any cycle we've ever been through.
That's right.
But at the other side of that is something I was talking to one of my AI product owners yesterday. There still has to be the trust factor that matters. And what I mean by that is one of the core tenets of our AI that we put out there is what the industry kind of refers to as human in the loop, meaning before anything would go from an AI agent to you as a customer of Fifth Third, there's some human that's making a decision. Should you get that or not? Yeah. Right? Or at some point, the customer will be the human in the loop and decide, do I want that or not? But the reason why I bring that up is like, there's got to be humans involved, because I don't think anybody's ready to turn over the way that a customer is moving money in my world, or a way that we're making decisions on should you get a loan by an AI agent with no human being a part of that decision, right? That's not a concept that anybody's ready for. And I think to get from here to being able to trust something like that happening is a long ways away, because you aren't going to trust it as a customer. My regulators aren't going to trust it, who make sure I'm doing my job to protect you, right? And then I'm not going to trust it because, God forbid, an AI agent give you something or do something that I have no knowledge or control over, because I just destroyed your trust in Fifth Third. Those things are what's going to gate some of the pace of AI disruption. In the frenetic conversations about all this stuff is going to have that filter on it for a long time.
I completely agree. Well, and when I'm thinking about, I'm going to go back to the students of today, whether it's undergrad, grad, professional students. You already called out kind of some of the challenges from post-pandemic and AI that have actually, interestingly, the more technological we become, the more we need human skills, human capabilities.
Totally.
I wonder if you have some parting thoughts for advice on those human capabilities that we need to be making sure we are also leaning into.
Ooh, man, that's a big one.
That is a big one.
Geez Louise.
Well, I mean, what you're thinking about it, because we can, I mean, I love your point about the teamwork and the collaboration, communication. I get really worried about the level of isolation.
I agree.
And
that's why I'm like, because boy, I can take this a lot of different places.
I know.
I'm with you. Do you read or follow anything around like stuff that like Professor Scott Galloway?
Oh, yes.
So like that's where my brain goes. I'm listening to a podcast with him
too.
And Simon Sinek right now. And
that's a good one.
It is a real good one. If it's this week's one from Simon Sinek is him and Professor Galloway, right? So, like that's where my brain goes, and it's like, but that's probably not, the way to take it for this one. I do. I think back to your point. I think that the human element's going to become more critical, and I think for that socialization has to be important to our students these days. Like at the end of the day, it's very easy to put yourself in isolation. It's not hard, because I think we've even lost a little bit of the understanding what isolation means, because I think sometimes people look at the filter through Instagram or TikTok or whatever as I'm not isolated, I'm in this community that's digital, and I may not be talking to you in person, but I'm not alone. And I fundamentally don't believe that that's true, right? I think that as a human, we were built for connection, right? We were built to have interaction physically, face to face, right? And I think in a business context, that's equally as important and always has been. We just didn't always know how important it was because we didn't realize it wasn't there, because it was there.
Right.
And to your
we
point,
took it for granted.
We took it for granted, and the pandemic set us into a different model. And then the social media craze has made it even more isolating and easier to stay isolated. And, you know, one of the things that I think is important, and we see this at Fifth Third, where we tell people we want you here, is that we just do better as a company when people are problem solving together. People work better, people perform better. I think the balance between work and home is easier to separate, because we saw that early in the pandemic. I think you probably did too, where people were working from home. Like, I don't know how to stop working because I have no physical
boundaries.
Yeah, my commute used to suck, but it gave me a chance to go from work to home. And then a lot of people lost that. And then in the company, we saw people that worked remote. They didn't understand the culture, because they'd be like, how do I get promoted to Fifth Third? I'm like, nobody even knows who you are. Right. So I had one-on-one meetings with a lot of early career people in 2021, 22, 23, because that was the question. I don't know how to make connection.
Yes.
And I don't know how to get promoted. And the reality was, I told them, you can't do that from home office easily, because nobody knows who you are and you don't know how we work. And so as we got people back into the office, the biggest beneficiary of that, and the group that in our own employee surveys we found was clamoring to come back in, was the early professional. And they came back first. And then the middle career people, who probably were less incentivized, because they're like, I don't care about career, I'm in mine. And we were like, no, you are the people, the generation that's helping these people know who Fifth Third is. And bringing them together gets us back into a cultural state of the company grows and the company's better because we're here. And I think that applies to everything that we do. It applies to coming to class. It applies to the projects that get done here. It applies to your co-ops and your interns. Like, I hope that society has the breakaway back from social media isolation back to people going to Uncle Woody's and hanging. I'm sure they do. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure they do. But I just think we have to keep reinforcing the benefits of society being together. And we have to keep using that as a way to get people out and functioning and getting away from the isolationism, right? Because that's going to be really critical for a healthy society, as technology is always going to find a way to make us more isolated if we want to allow it. And we got to find a way to not do that.
Yeah. To counter it.
I don't know if that answered your question.
But it very much did, Jude. I so appreciate it. And I want to just say, thank you again. Thank you for your inspiration, your role model, also as an advisor and a strategic partner with Fifth Third. I mean, we are learning together in a very fast-moving world about the power of technology and very much the power of humanity.
Yeah.
So thank you, Jude.
Well, and can I just say thanks back? Because, as you know, University of Cincinnati is our number one partner down at Fifth Third. We even had a thing down in the atrium earlier. Was that late last year? God,
yes, with all the alumni.
We brought everybody back. There were hundreds of people down there, and this university's been instrumental. And honestly, you personally, and then Lindner as the business college, have been critical to the growth of Fifth Third and to the culture that's been created. So we love partnering with you guys, and I look forward to continuing to do that. So thank you guys, and thank you personally, Marianne.
Absolutely, Jude.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Onward. And go Bearcats.
Yes, go Bearcats.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Bearcats Mean Business. If today's episode sparked a new idea, challenged your thinking, or helped you see your path a little more clearly, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share the episode with someone in your network. Thanks for being part of the conversation. And remember, real-world success begins